Hey, what's up, people of the WWWs? I hope everybody's doing well, loving life, and being kind to each other. Today we're going to talk about politics, going to work, and friendship. I've been getting a lot of emails at AskJohn@RamseySolutions.com about going back to work and having trouble with politics. You're too conservative, you're too liberal, you can't talk about the president, you can't be for the president, you can't be against him, oh, Black Lives Matter, you're this. All of it has turned into this big mess. So I want to give some practical tips on how I handle some of these conversations, both in my personal life and in my professional life. For those of you who don't know and are new to the John Delony Tubes show, I work with Dave Ramsey, one of the most prolific radio voices in the United States. I've been co-hosting the Dave Ramsey Show now for the last several months, and I currently am employed by Ramsey Solutions, his parent company. So this email talks about a dynamic between me and Dave that a listener has observed on the radio. Here we go. Dr. D, what's up? What's up? You and Dave seem to be totally different in many ways in approaches to people and problems. How do you and Dave Ramsey overcome the generational, cultural, educational, and ideological differences you have? What have you learned from him? What skills have you developed since joining the Ramsey team? I'm curious as an avid listener, especially since you referenced Brene Brown, someone whose work on shame I totally respect, but she is also someone whom is politically and ideologically totally different from Dave and even myself. Thoughts? Thanks. I love this question. It's so good. Every single person watching this video is dealing with this right now. You've got parents who have different political ideas than you do. You've got bosses who are ideologically different than you. You've got friends who suddenly over the last 6 months have come out of the woodwork and you've seen a side of them that you really love or you really hate. All of your friends on the interwebs, on the cellular devices, man, they are getting loud and angry and fervent and canceling and adding and subtracting. It's just gotten bananas. And so I want to first say I wholeheartedly, with all of my guts, reject the politicalization and the polarization of basic human interaction. I reject it out of hand. It's ridiculous. My life doesn't work that way. Your life doesn't work that way. And when I'm talking to somebody who I care about, or I'm talking to a stranger at a bus stop, and I mention, hey, I really like this, you can't then take me and dump me into a bucket that tells me everything else about my life. That's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. But we do that to one another. We allow our political teams to do that to our country, and it's just nonsense. So I completely out of hand reject the politicalization and the polarization of every single topic. The world is a slide rule. Things are messier than that. At every place I've ever worked, I've been too conservative over here, way too liberal over here, whoa, way too conservative over here. What kind of liberal lunatic are you here? That's been my whole life. And for whatever reason, I kind of like it that way. I like people not knowing right where I land on things because sometimes I change my mind. And sometimes I have really strong beliefs about something, and then I get some more information. I spend some time with some people. I walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, and my beliefs about something transform. And that's happened all across the political and ideological spectrum over the last 20 or 30 years. And that brings me to this important point. If you look back over the last 20 years of your life, and you haven't grown up yet, if there aren't things in your past that you wish, I wish I hadn't said that, or I thought this, but now I've grown up or I've been enlightened or educated or taught differently or had new friends and now I think this. If you haven't grown, God help you, man. And if you have grown, that's called wisdom. That's called growth. That's called the cornerstone of humanity. All of us should be growing, developing, and moving towards becoming better people. That's the journey, right? So specifically for this question, Dave Ramsey and John Delony are just different people. We have different life experiences. We had different parents. We had different friends. I went to a lot of school. Dave got a bachelor's degree. Dave's run a multi-million-dollar business for 30 years. I've been working in nonprofit education world. I've got one dog. I don't know how many dogs Dave has. He has 3 kids. I've got 2. All that to say is we're different people. Our value systems are very much aligned. We both have a strong sense of family and community, and we both get up every day of our lives with one unique, singular mission, and that is to help empower people and help empower communities to take control of their lives back, to be free from those things that are holding them down, to get their voice back, to stand up tall, and to walk with their head held high along the streets of their neighborhood. That's what we do. We share those values. But there's a difference between values and beliefs. I like to think of beliefs as just a set of information. It's just an insert of information. I believe in this. I believe in that. I've heard scientists say, I believe in climate change. And I've heard people read an internet article and say, I don't believe in climate change. They are just choosing to not believe in a set of facts or to believe in a set of facts. That's what a belief is. I believe in God. I don't believe in God. I believe my dog is the best dog ever. I believe your dog sucks, right? Beliefs are just a set of information. And sometimes Dave and I have different beliefs. Here's an example of a belief. A caller calls on the radio. Dave believes that the right way to address this caller's pain is to get loud. My belief on how to address that caller's pain is to get quiet. Our value system is exactly the same. We both want what's best for that person. But we have different beliefs on how to go about getting that done. And here's the thing. What I know about Dave Ramsey is that if I really felt strongly in my heart that his belief was wrong, and in a respectful, dignified way, I said, hey Dave, here's the research, here's my experience, here's why I get quiet in this moment, and here's where getting loud may hurt somebody. Dave would take that into consideration because he values insight and care. And on the other side, Dave may look at me and say, John, your quietness, your silence is part of the problem in this moment. This isn't a moment for, oh, how does that make you feel? This moment is to slam on the table in a moment of injustice and say, no more, John. You got to get loud. And I would hear that because one of my values is I want to love people the best way I know how. And sometimes I need a new tool in my toolkit to help me love better. And in that case, maybe it's volume, right? Maybe it's action. Maybe it's response. Maybe it's quiet. Maybe it's think before speaking, John. Maybe it's fill in the blank. So there's a difference between beliefs and values. So one of the great lessons I've learned from Dave Ramsey since I've joined his team is that he is a CEO of a multi-million-dollar company and he's a radio host. So what makes him unique from most CEOs in the country is that every day he spends 3 hours with the frontline customer. Imagine how different the dining experience would be at Burger King if every day for 3 hours, if the CEO of Burger King took orders and filled the lunch sacks. The business would be different, right? So Dave listens to the pain and the hurts and the successes of 3 hours worth of callers every single day. And that informs how he runs his company. And one thing Dave is always pushing this company to remember, that all of the energy, all of the work, all of the lights, the cameras, all of the stuff is for one thing, to honor and take care of the person who's hurting and needs our help. That's it. Never forget. We're talking to real people with real lives. Not theories, not academic exercises, not what ifs. Real people, real lives, desperate for some support in a crazy, crazy world. And Dave reminds me of that all the time. And I've really grown from that. As for what skills I've picked up since I joined the Ramsey team, I didn't have Instagram before I got here, no Facebook. I've never sent a tweet. I certainly have never been on the YouTubes before. I didn't even know YouTube channels were a thing. I've learned that. I've learned how to collaborate, learned to let people speak into my wardrobe choices, let people speak into my speeches on stage. I've learned to take feedback on a radio show. I've never done radio before. So honestly, it's more of what have I not learned, right? I'm learning every single day. And at the end of this great email, the author mentions me talking about Brene Brown, how Brene Brown has some great things on shame, some good science, but maybe some different political and ideological thoughts than Dave or as the author. And I'll leave Dave out of this because I've never sat down and walked through with him some of Brene Brown's thoughts. And I've never sat down with Brene Brown. We're from the same hometown and we have quasi the same field. I never sat down and talked to her though. She's much more accomplished. She's a great author, a great writer, a great researcher. And from what I'm told, she's a great mom, a great friend, and a great partner with her husband too. But here's the thing. If I step back at 30,000 feet, I think Brene Brown's a lot more like Dave than people might think. If I put down the politics, if I put down the polarization, both Dave and Brene really love people. They're both people of deep and devout faith. They both really, really want to help individuals and systems, groups of people, be free from the things that hold them back, whether it's past experiences, bad money habits, poor decision making, trauma, and the like. So I would suggest that Dave and Brene probably share a lot of the same values, the same drivers that get them up every morning. Now that manifests itself in different beliefs, but I don't know. I've never sat down and talked to them. I do know this. I love them both. One I love up close, one I love from afar. And I share values with both of them. And I share beliefs that are different than both of them. And I think that's whole and healthy and good. So to address the last part of this question about whether Brene Brown and Dave and you, me, we have different political ideologies, so maybe some good science, some things that we agree with, some things that we don't agree with. I mentioned Brene Brown a few times on Dave's show. I love her scholarship. I love her work. We're from the same hometown in Houston there. I've never run across her, but I do respect her research. I've heard she's a great, fun, wonderful mother, friend, wife, all those things, right? And I know the same about Dave, that he's a great husband. His kids love him. His community loves him. And when I distill those two figures down into people of faith, people who truly get up every morning with one goal, and that's to help other people live their lives more fully and more whole. People who are really fighting against systems, right? Dave has decided to make his life's work taking on the financial system that cripples and shackles people. And Brene has take on systems of shame, systems that hold people down spiritually and psychologically. Their values appear to me on the outside to be very similar. That manifests itself in different beliefs, different ways of going about solving problems. But I tend to look at people for what they are offering to the world. I tend to look at people for the things they have in common, not the things that divide them. I'm tired of living in a world that is either or. I'm tired of walking out and wanting to hang out with my neighbor and saying, oh, you're voting for them? I was thinking about voting for them. And now we can't have barbecue together. This has gotten nuts. It's gotten nuts to the point that I see somebody you may be following in the imaginary world on the Instagrams, and I'm just going to assume everything about what you believe, lock, stock, and barrel. How you treat your husband or your wife or your kids. Do you kick your dog? I just superimpose my values, my beliefs, my understanding of you based on these little trinkets of information. Some of you have written in and you go to work and you're bullied for your beliefs. You're bullied for not liking the president. You're bullied for liking the president. You're bullied for your faith. You're bullied for the way you look. Stop. Just stop. I've sat with thousands of people over the last 20 years, and I promise you we have more in common than we don't. And so to go full circle, are me and Dave generationally, culturally, educationally, and ideologically different? On some things. He's old. I'm still young and handsome. I've got all my hair. He doesn't have his. He's got millions and millions of dollars in the bank. I've got more like dozens. But we both share a same set of core values that if each one of us was to get in a room and really drill down on, we'd all be very similar, I promise you. As Brene Brown says, if you go looking for places in the world where you don't belong, you will surely find them. Let's let this video be the moment where we start looking for places where we belong, where people are joyful, where they are optimistic, where they are giving us hard truths that we need to hear. Let's start looking for ways we can love one another instead of looking for one more reason why somebody is different than us and why we're better. Let's start that today. This is John Delony with Ramsey Network. Subscribe, forward, send this to your grandma and to your grandparents and to your pets, whoever you want to. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.